So I'm Tom, Marquita's behind the camera today, and we're destined to explore. Today we're going to talk about the solar upgrades that we made on the rig. Put solar panels on, installed a few more components. So we want to talk about the performance of that and things. A couple of disclaimers I want to make. First off, I am not a solar installer. I'm not an electrician. So you should, if you're going to do this kind of installation, you should make your own decisions and do your own research on that. The other thing that I want to just mention too is a solar install is not a simple do-it-yourself installation. So if you have any doubt, you should really hire it out, because there's a lot of things, there's a lot of power in the batteries, and if you do things wrong wire sizes, incorrect fusing and things like that, it could turn out very badly for you. So when in doubt, hire it out. The other piece I just want to mention too is, despite the fact that all of this equipment was sent to us, we're under no obligation at all to provide a positive review. We can do whatever we want. There is no requirements around us receiving that equipment to do any kind of positive review like that.
So why did they send us the equipment?
Well, they sent it because it's what we ordered and paid for. All right then, well, so why did I choose to self-install? Well, one reason is I really like learning new things and researching things. So I'll tell you that I spent more time researching, watching things on YouTube, reading things online, far more time doing the research and things than I did the actual install. And that's not to in any way imply that the install went quickly and was super easy. The other reason is I wanted to start out small and build off of that. So as you know, we did install the batteries in the MultiPlus-II inverter last summer. So we wanted to have experience with that to kind of have an idea of how much power we were using first before we decided on how much solar and whether we wanted to add more batteries. The last reason is by doing the install myself, I know the system pretty much inside and out. I know where all the wires go and how everything's put together, how the programming happened. So if there is a problem later on, I've got a much better chance or opportunity to figure out maybe what's not working and how to fix it. And so it did save us a lot of money to do the install ourselves as well. We'll talk about how much it costs. We'll talk about a number of the resources I used, the performance of the system a little later on. We'll get into all of that. Okay, so this is where we've been staying for the last couple of weeks here. It's been a great opportunity for us to put the solar into action. You can see we've got 3 panels up here, and we'll just talk about that a little bit. A lot of people will say, well, you put the panels between the air conditioners, and you're going to get a lot of shading from that. The other way that we could have put the panels, we could have run them on the sides. And so the rationale behind that is, if you see here where the shadows are, there's a little bit of a shadow on this one, but not too much. So what we've tried to do is we've tried to park ourselves so that the peak sun is directly onto the panels, so that we have very little shading during the peak part of the day when we can produce the most electricity. So if you did look at the shadows here, you can see as the sun got up higher, the shadows will get shorter, obviously, in the summertime, but you can see that this shadow is going to swing around this way, and if we had panels running down the sides, we'd be hitting the shade there. So if we had panels on the side, then we'd want to point either our nose or tail into the sun. A couple other reasons I looked at doing the panels between the ACs is because I wanted to have access to get up on the roof here and have access to sweep off the slides, because we don't have slide toppers. So that was kind of important to me as well, to be able to get up there. I also wanted to try and put the panels as far back and on the RV as possible. I probably could have gotten one behind the last AC, but it was pretty tight back there. Up here, of course, I was able to provide a little bit of spacing between the AC to minimize the shadows here, and I did the same on the one back there. I pushed it farther to the one with the slope on the front because that would cause less shadow there. What I did here was I basically used an aluminum channel that I bought at Home Depot. It's 1.5 inches by a 1/16 inch thick. And then I mounted a piece on the back of the panel, and then I secured this piece to the roof. And I just, I used a 1/4 inch bolt with a locking nut and washer on there, and then I just, if you can see down here, I basically just screwed these 2 pieces together in 4 different places across underneath the panel. Finding the correct locations to actually mount this on the roof was one of the biggest challenges here. The roof is a 3/8 inch wafer board, which doesn't have a whole lot of holding power to it. So you really want to find where those roof trusses are. And I don't know if you can see here, but where this bolt is, there's a seam for one of the panels. Those are pretty easy to locate on the roof. And you might make the assumption, like I did to start, that that since these are 4-foot panels, that the trusses are going to be 16 inches apart. Well, they're not. They vary between probably 14 inches and maybe up to 18 inches, and that basically it just depends on where different things are coming through the roof. So they move those trusses a little bit to accommodate those things. So it's not like a normal house roof would be. So what I ended up doing is getting a diagram from the manufacturer where I was able to measure out on the roof and determine where all of those trusses would be, and I marked those off. And then what I did was I used basically 1/4 inch by like 1 1/4 inch lag screws, and I just lag bolted down into those. And then of course when you're done bolting, securing whatever you're putting to the roof down, you want to use a lot of die core to seal all that up to make sure that you're not going to get any leaks or anything like that in there. Another mistake that I made was severely underestimating how much die core I was going to need. I think I bought 2 tubes, and I think I probably went through at least 6 or 7 tubes. So if you're doing something like this yourself, make sure you order plenty of die core. So on our RV, we do have a connection pre-wired for solar here. So if you look right down here, you can see that we've got this solar connector down here, and you can see that I chose not to use that. So this is what I did instead here. Is our manufacturer provided a PVC pipe that goes from the roof all the way down to the basement area, back where all the kind of utilities and water heater and things are. And so I used that because that was going to be a shorter installation route for me, as opposed to running the wires all the way to the front and then having to go from that front compartment back to where I installed all the batteries and charge controllers and everything like that. You'll also notice the way that I've attached the wires to the roof is I found these basically adhesive cable mounts at Home Depot. So these are they basically just have adhesive on the back, and it's a super strong adhesive. These ones were rated for basically for sun exposure. So what I did was I used some alcohol and cleaned off the roof really well here, and then I stuck these down, and so far they're staying really well. I did put some zip ties on here to security thing, because what we don't want to have is we don't want to have the wires flapping all over the roof and shaking and chafing on things like that. So everything is secured down really well. So one of the things that's really important to do here too is to keep your panels really clean. But you can see I've got some water spots and things on here from a little dust on here, and we had a little sprinkle yesterday. So the way that I've been cleaning them, I have used like a glass cleaner on them to get some of the stubborn stuff off. But mostly what I've been using is, this is just they call it like a car duster. This is like a California duster is what they call it. And I just use that duster on here, and I just wipe it off, and you can just shake the dust off of it after you dust them. And it's really quite amazing. I've been up here a couple of times and dusted the panels off, and I'll go back down and I'll pick up like close to 50 watts of power at times, just by getting a little bit of dust off the panels. So that's really important that you get up here once in a while and clean those panels off as well. So we wanted to talk a little bit about the system performance that we've gotten out of the solar. So as a reminder, I just wanted to talk about what we have in the camper. Again, we have an Alliance 310 RL with a residential refrigerator. We have 1,080 watts of solar that's laid flat on the roof. We have 500 amp hours of battle-born batteries. We have a Victron MultiPlus-II 3000 watt inverter. And we have the Victron Cerbo GX, which allows us to monitor all of the performance of the system. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the big questions that we had going into buying our rig.
and setting up the solar for it. So one of the big questions that we had was how much power are we going to draw, particularly with a residential refrigerator. And we couldn't really find a lot of information on that. So when we're talking about power from solar and power consumption, there's two measurements that come into play. One is kilowatt hours, and that's the measurement that's used when talking about how much power a solar panel is producing. The second one is amp hours, and the amp hours is the power drawn out of a battery. So what I want to do is I want to give you the numbers in both kilowatt hours and amp hours so you can kind of see how those two numbers relate to each other. So our minimum daily draw, with no one living in the camper, the residential refrigerator, and just other basic things that just run in an RV, is the equivalent of 1.42 kilowatt hours or 105 amp hours. The residential refrigerator accounts for 0.95 kilowatt hours or about 74 amp hours. So it's the major portion of that power consumption that we're running. If we're living in the RV and working in the RV like I do 3 days a week, we're drawing about 3.5 kilowatt hours or about 260 amp hours with computers, monitors, and things like that running. For solar produced, we put the system in basically in the beginning of January. We did a run on January 26th, and on January 26th in Arizona, we were able to produce 2.7 kilowatt hours or 206 amp hours. So on a work day in January, we consume more power than we would produce. But as the year goes on and the sun stays up longer, we're able to produce more power. We did another power run basically on March 31st, again in Arizona. On March 31st, we were able to produce 5.6 kilowatt hours or 415 amp hours. So we're actually producing much more power than we would use. That's not running air conditioners and things like that, and we'll get to that in a moment. So the next question that people really want to know is, can I run an air conditioner? So let's talk about a couple of the challenges with the air conditioner. One of the challenges that we ran into, and we should have known about this because I've read plenty about this, but when we were in Lake Havasu and the temperature got to I think close to 90 degrees, we decided we wanted to run an air conditioner, and we plugged in our Honda generator. The generator would not start the air conditioner. In order for an air conditioner to start, there's a huge power draw as the air conditioner starts up, and in order to overcome that power draw, what you need to have is some kind of soft start device on the air conditioner. So we ordered and installed two micro air easy starts on two of the three air conditioners on our RV, and we do have a install video right here. So you can see the AC that I'm working on here on our rig here it's a Coleman Mach 3. This one happens to be non-ducted, but that's, if you have that same model, your wiring should be pretty much exactly the same. So we ordered a couple soft starts for the ACs up here, and we're gonna put that in today. This is a project that really anybody could do. It's super easy. I'm not gonna be doing a complete full install video, but you could probably follow along and figure out what I'm doing here. But let's dig in and see what we got. First thing I need to do is take these 4 screws out on the top, and then we'll pop the cover off, and then we'll see what we got inside. We'll get the small screwdriver in here, and we'll just kind of pry forward there so that can just pop over that little spot. And once I got one out, I can do the next one up here. So that's 2. And I'm going to repeat that on the other side. You don't have to get them all out across the top, because once you got a couple of these loosened on the sides, this will just kind of hinge forward and you can just pull this right off of here. So let's get that done. So next thing I got to do here, once I got that cover off, is I'm just going to pull off this little access panel right here with my driver. That always makes things nice and fast, and it just slides down right here, and that's that. And so what we're looking for is
just the little wires that are coming down to this capacitor right here. These capacitors can hold energy once you've even shut the power off. Of course, you should shut the power off before you ever get started with this. And I just turned the breakers off, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to short across these terminals here. That one's kind of a little tricky to get to, so I'm just going to go crossways on it. Yeah, there's nothing there. And then the two terminals on the smaller one, we won't be doing anything on that, but that's that. And then the next thing we need to do is pull these this little goopy stuff off around the where the wires are going in here, because we got to feed a couple wires through there. And we'll just set that aside because we're going to use that. So this is the unit that we've got here. This is the Micro Start Easy Start. I think it's yeah, it's number 364. It doesn't have the Bluetooth in it, but this is one that's been highly recommended by a number of people. So we're going to go ahead and install that. We're going to go ahead and probably, well, I will be sticking it right down in this area. But the first thing we need to do is feed these wires through. So this is just what we have to do to hook up the wires, and this is why I tell you it's so super easy. What we're doing is we're looking for this brown wire here that's coming from the Easy Start on this wire, and we've got the big capacitor back here, and there's a white wire on this, and we can make sure that that goes through the compressor just by pulling on that. But that's really easy. What we're going to do is we're just going to take the needle nose pliers, is right here, and we're just going to pull the white wire off of the capacitor. That just pops off. Comes off pretty easy. We're just going to clip the end of the white wire off. So we're going to strip that. We're going to strip that white wire off about so far. I'm just going to twist those just to firm them up. And the install kit that I got from Hutch Mountain. Really like these little Wago connectors. So instead of having to crimp something down, we just pop these open, and I'm just going to slide that brown wire in until it gets to the very end, and I'm going to clip that shut, and then I'm going to push the white wire in until it gets to the very end, and click that, and then that connection is made. So the next step here is this black wire we're going to connect, and that's going to go to the purple wire and the black wire here. And if you just pull on this black wire and the wire that goes to the compressor up here, we can see that that's the same. So we're just going to clip this little connector off. We clip that, and then we'll strip these back just a bit. That one and this one, and on this one we have a three-way connector, and we'll just open that up. It doesn't matter what order the wires go in here. They can go in any order. They're just basically all being connected together. So I'm going to put the purple one in the middle, and I'll put this last black wire on the outside here. And if I look on the back side, I can see that they're all captured in there. So that's that connection. So that leaves us down to the last two connections here. We've got the white wire and the orange wire, and hopefully we can see inside here. But we're going to basically take the white wire that's coming from the Easy Start, and that's going to go to the run capacitor where the white wire originally came from. And now you want to make sure that you get that this goes on the connection correctly. You see there's a gap in this particular connector here, so you could easily push it down there and it wouldn't be real tight. You want to make sure that you get it inside the teeth of that connector. So let's go ahead and push that on there. Yeah, that's on there nice and snug. And then the orange wire is just going to go to the other side over here. So we'll go ahead and slide that one on too. And I'm just going to slip that in here and get that connected. So that's all the connections in here. We'll have to do a little bit of wire management here in a bit. And the last little piece here then is putting this Easy Start on. And the install kit that I've got so it's got this really big nice piece of adhesive tape here that I can put on the back. And then it comes with, I've got an extra wire here that I don't need. That's maybe for a different type of install. I've got a couple of these alcohol pads here. And I'm just going to take these pads. And first I'm going to clean off the back of this because we want that adhesive to stick really well. This will evaporate really fast. And I can see the back of this is pretty dirty too. So we're going to clean that up really well. Let's use both sides so we get it extra clean. So that's one of those. And I'm going to use the other one as well on there, and we'll just do that whole thing one more time. So what I ended up doing here is I ended up just kind of slipping the Easy Start in between this. It maybe would have been easier if I'd have run the wires from this side first. But what I want to do is I want a spot to put the Easy Start where I can get the screws in, and then secure these extra pieces of wire so they're not rubbing against anything sharp here. We want the wire entry on the bottom, so that's kind of a good drip loop there. So I'm just going to go ahead and peel the backing off the back side here. Stick that in my box up here. And then I'm going to try and mount this, I guess, a little higher up here and try and get it relatively straight. So that wasn't too bad. Now I got a couple of screws here, mechanical fasteners, and I'm going to put those both on this side because I can see where they come through in this compartment here. So we're going to go ahead and get those in there. It'd be nice if they were self-tapping, but they're not. Okay, those are both in. Now we just need to do a little bit of wire management up here. We're going to go ahead and take the goopy stuff that we pulled off from before. We're just going to pack that back around there really well and get that sealed up nice and well. It's all covered up anyway, so it's unlikely you get any moisture in there. And then a little bit of wire management. We got a few zip ties here. I want to put a little loop on this so that's not doesn't have an opportunity to rub up against anything. So if I point it that way, so that's good. There, that one's nice and tight. That one seems to be holding. And the last thing I want to do in here is, because these two screws are coming through the cabinet in here, I don't want a wire to slip down and make contact with one of those. So I'm just going to take this whole bundle here and just kind of zip tie everything together, just so nothing's flopping around in there and getting next to any of those screws in there. So that'll just prevent any of that from happening. Not necessarily an issue, but I just don't want to take any chances. And that's basically all there is to the install. Just have to put the cover back on. I'm going to go down and test things out first and make sure everything is firing up and running before I close it back up, but we should be good. Let's talk about the power consumption then. So if we're running one air conditioner and we're running our Honda generator will produce enough power to cover that air conditioner. One of the things, again, that we discovered in Lake Havasu was when you get to the point where you really want to have an air conditioner running, what we discovered is we really wanted to have at least 2 air conditioners running. So that becomes the next challenge, is 2 air conditioners will draw more than what our Honda generator will produce. What we discovered is
Okay, that's cool.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, are you asking them? Okay, that's cool. They look like they're close by.
Aren't you expecting to see them run across?
I am.
Okay, so back to the diagram. So one of the things that we discovered was if we want to have one air conditioner running, we really want to have two running. And that's where, again, the Victron MultiPlus-II and I think other Victron inverter chargers come into play. Is you can see our Honda generator in this diagram was producing 918 watts of power. Our AC loads were 2,384 watts of power, so more than what we were able to produce. The solar charge controller was producing 779 watts of power off the solar on the roof. So between the generator and the solar charge controller, we were actually producing more power than we were using running two air conditioners, and we're actually charging the batteries a small amount. So when the sun goes down, we start producing less power, and we're consuming more power than we're basically producing at that point. That's where one of the beautiful parts of the Victron MultiPlus-II comes in play, because it has what's called power assist. And at that point, it will make up the additional power and start pulling power off of the batteries. So a lot of people are going to want to know, what did it cost? I'm going to talk about some rough numbers here, but all the details of this will be in the description down below. So the Victron components that we installed were $3,180. The Battleborn batteries were $39.95 for 5 100 amp hour batteries. And then there was a number of other miscellaneous costs that were involved. So the total cost was just over $9,400. If you wanted to save on the installation cost, you could buy other batteries other than the Battleborns. I felt that the Battleborns were probably the best battery out there. A lot of people feel that they're overcost, but you could save money on the Battleborn batteries. You could also save money on the chargers and inverter and all the other components in the system as well. My son has a saying that anything worth doing is worth overdoing, and I kind of applied that kind of a thing to what I'm doing here. I want to have the best system that I can have, and I want to know that it's going to work really well. So are we happy with the system, and is it going to pay off for us? We would have to camp well over 200 nights at $50 a night to pay that system off. And over the life of the camper, as long as we expect to have it, I expect that will probably happen. But the bigger thing for us is just the flexibility that it gives us. It gives us the flexibility to stop and camp in a remote area like we're in tonight. Allows us to boondock wherever we want to and not have to worry about the power consumption. So between the solar panels and having a generator as a backup when we don't produce enough power, it gives us a ton of flexibility in where we can camp and when we camp. And for us, I think it's worth it from that perspective. For us installing the system ourselves, I'd estimate that we save probably around $3,000 over the cost of having somebody else install it. But again, I think, as I said earlier, if you have doubts about your ability to learn how to do this and to install it yourself, it's really probably better to hire someone else to do that for you. So we're trying to finish up the solar install, or the solar video, and I was on Facebook yesterday and I saw a question pop up that I think is worth addressing at the same time. Wherever you are, the sun's not always going to shine, and you might need to run a generator. And so the first topic we want to talk about before the generator being plugged into power is having a surge protector, and we've talked about our surge protector before. But what the surge protector does is it protects your camper from high and low voltages and improper wiring pedestals and all kinds of things like that. And it would be prudent to also plug your surge protector into the generator when you're running it, just in case you have some issue with the generator work and creates high or low voltage. You don't want to damage a bunch of stuff in your camper. The problem becomes is when you plug a surge protector into a generator, the surge protector is going to show you an error and says that it's not grounded, that there's a disconnect there that needs to be corrected. And so the fix for that is what's called a bonding plug. And basically what happens in the bonding plug is it takes the neutral plug, whichever one of those this happens to be, and basically connects it to the ground. But what you want to do with the bonding plug then is in the front here where you've got two outlets, you just plug that into one of the outlets and it corrects that, and then you plug in your cord on the other one like that, and then when you run the generator you can use the surge protector and it will work just fine. So just one point of clarification that some people might ask is I'm not plugging this into the generator. If I was, I'd need to have some kind of adapter
but the reason I'm not using this one is this is our spare, and we actually have a hardwired surge protector inside. This is the little readout for it, and there's nothing lighting up on that right now because we're not running any power in there. But if we were, that would light up, and it would show that we got a good connection. So I also wanted to just talk about some of the resources I use. Will be in the link below, but the one resource that I really wanted to call out is EXPLORISTlife, Nate Yarborough. He has a amazing series on information regarding to installing a solar system. Everything from cutting wire to crimping lugs on wire to laying out solar panels, programming solar charge controllers. He has, I think there's 21 or more different videos that he has. And that was one of the primary sources that I used to figure out how to do the installation of our system. So if you like this content and you want to see more, hit the subscribe button below and look for more videos in the future.